So, here's a question I want you to sit with for a second. Now, when I say the word macros, what does it make you feel? For a lot of people, the honest answer is mildly anxious or mildly bored, because macronutrients tend to show up in one of two contexts. It's some gym bro telling you to hit your protein target and track everything, or it's someone online telling you that one of those three macros is secretly ruining your life. Neither framing is right or especially helpful. Welcome or welcome back to the new 5 a day. I'm Nick Walters and this is Eat Well, episode 4. And today we're making macronutrients simple, not dumbed down, just simple enough to actually use. What carbs, protein, and fat actually do, where to find them, what a balanced plate looks like, and a few things to try out this week. No tracking apps required. Okay, let's go. So, macronutrients, the big three, one at a time. Carbohydrates are your body's preferred fuel, particularly for the brain and the hard-working muscles. Not all carbs behave in the same way. Whole grains, beans, and fruit release energy slowly and come together with fiber, keeping you fuller for longer. Refined carbs like white bread and sugary cereals, they release energy fast, producing sharper blood sugar rise followed by a dip. That mid-morning slump an hour after breakfast is often the fingerprint of exactly that. Carbs aren't the enemy. The quality of the carb is what matters. Now, protein is the building material your body runs on. Every time you repair a muscle after exercise, produce hormones or enzymes to fight off an infection, you're using protein to do it. It also happens to be the macronutrient that keeps you feeling fullest for longest. It comes from the obvious sources: chicken, fish, eggs, dairy. But plant sources are genuinely underestimated. A tin of lentils, chickpeas, a block of tofu, edamame, they all provide meaningful protein alongside fiber and other nutrients. You don't have to eat meat to meet your needs, but something protein containing should always show up at your meals. Now, fat has had a rough few decades. The low-fat messaging of the 1980s and 90s gave people the impression fat was the enemy, and manufacturers responded by replacing it with sugar, which didn't go especially well for public health. The truth is, fat is essential for cell structure, hormones, and also for absorbing vitamins A, D, E, and K, which can't be absorbed without fat present. The distinction that matters is type. Fats in olive oil, nuts, avocados, and oily fish are consistently linked to long-term health benefits. Fats in heavily processed food are worth moderating, not eliminating. Something that often surprises people: most everyday meals already contain all three. You're not starting from scratch. Take porridge. The oats are slow-release carbohydrate. Add nuts or peanut butter, and you've brought in protein and healthy fat. Add fruit, and you've added more fiber. Compare that to sugary cereal in skimmed milk, fast carbs, a little protein, barely any fiber or fat, fuel with no structural support, which is exactly why you're going to be feeling hungry again before your first meeting of the day. Or take lunch. A chicken salad with brown rice has protein from the chicken, slow-release carbohydrates from the rice, and fiber from the salad. And together with a little olive oil, avocado, you get some healthy fat. Now compare that to a white bread sandwich with a thin smear of cheese and crisps on the side. It's mostly refined carbohydrate, little protein, barely any fiber, probably delicious, but likely to leave you reaching for something to snack on by mid-afternoon. The point isn't that one is virtuous and the other shameful. Once you can see the macros in the meal, you can see the gaps. And then you can choose to make a simple swap if you want to. If balance across the three is what we're aiming for, not perfection, what does that actually look like on a plate? Well, about half your plate is fruit or vegetables, not this little side salad, half the plate. And this is where you're getting most of your fiber and vitamins from. Then about a quarter is protein. Think about it as a piece of fish, piece of chicken, some beans, some tofu, whatever works for you. And then the last quarter is starchy carbohydrates: potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, ideally whole grain where you can. Then add a small amount of healthy fat which is usually going to show up naturally in how you cook. Now, this is a guide, it's not a rule, it's not a test you can fail. You don't need every meal to be perfect. You need a general sense of the shape so that across a week, you're broadly getting what your body needs. One pizza night doesn't undo anything. The pattern is what matters, and the pattern is really forgiving. So here's something the research says clearly, and which I find to be liberating. There's no universal, perfect macronutrient ratio. You'll hear people cite specific formulas like 40% carbs, 30 protein, 30 fat, with a confidence the evidence doesn't fully support. What large studies actually show is that several macro distributions are compatible with good health, as long as food quality is there and you're not pushing any one category to an extreme. The very low carb and very high carb diets both tend to carry more risk than the middle range. More fundamentally, food quality explains more of the variance in health outcomes than macro ratios do. Two people with an identical split can have very different trajectories depending on whether their carbs are coming from whole grains or refined sugar, the protein from oily fish or processed meat. So the useful question isn't what's my macro ratio, it's what's the quality of the macros I'm eating. That's where the leverage is. So let's talk about what macro imbalance feels like in practice, because most of us have probably experienced it without having a framework to talk about it. That afternoon energy slump, struggling to focus by 3 p.m. and eyeing the biscuit tin, that's often following a lunch heavy on refined carbs and light on protein and fat. Energy rises fast and falls fast. Feeling full but not quite satisfied, picking at things afterwards. That's often a sign of a meal that's genuinely light on protein, which is the macronutrient most strongly linked to satiety. Neither is a moral failure. They're just useful data points to think about what your body's asking for. Now, the goal isn't to track every gram. It's a few habits that nudge the balance over time. Pair your carbs with protein or fat. Toast with peanut butter. An egg or some smoked salmon is a genuinely different meal from toast alone. The protein and fat slow down the digestion of the carbohydrate and delay hunger. It's one of the most high-impact single changes you can make. Add protein to carb-heavy meals. Stir lentils or a tin of tuna into a bowl of pasta, for example. The pasta hasn't changed, the meal has. Swap refined carbs for whole grain wherever you can. Wholemeal instead of white, brown rice instead of white. Even half and half is a really good place to start if a full swap feels a little bit too much. Make healthy fat your cooking default. Olive oil instead of butter. A handful of nuts on porridge. Oily fish once or twice a week. And then look at your default breakfast and lunch specifically, because that's where the imbalance is most common and where the easiest, biggest wins are. Pick one of these, just one, and give it a try this week. Now, eating well is pillar 2 of the new 5 a day, and macronutrients are one of the most useful tools in the toolkit, not because they give you a formula, but because they give you a way of seeing and talking about your meals more clearly. Carbohydrates, protein, and fat all belong on your plate. None of them are the enemy. You don't need to count or track anything. Just have a rough mental picture of balance and a few small habits that nudge things closer to it. And there's a companion deep dive with a full evidence base at www.new5aday.com. That's with the number 5. Next episode, we're moving on to pillar 3 and looking at the importance of building your strength. So be sure to get your protein in. Until then, take care and eat well.